Hello and welcome again to Backpage. I'm Jody C. and today we're visiting with Jan Underwood about her novel, new novel, which is called Utterly Heartless. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us about this book.
I call it a satirical magic realist murder mystery.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
It's a tongue-in-cheek mystery and an academic satire.
Okay. Is this Portland? Is it Reed College?
Oh, that's a great question. I hadn't thought specifically of Reed, but I think that's a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
The college in the book is called Middlebridge. It's fictitious.
Mm-hmm.
It's a state college in a fictitious town called Bridges. I envisioned Bridges to be a little smaller than Portland, actually, but I definitely draw on Portland in a kind of winking way with the torrential rains and the offbeat culture.
Right. And well, the offbeat culture, I instantly thought Reed College. You know, this is Reed.
Right.
Yeah, it's got to be Reed.
Yeah, the quirky, thinky students. Yeah.
So how did this whole plot come to you?
Well, you know, I've been a college instructor for more than 20 years, so my work life provides me with plenty of material for satire.
Okay, and so you teach where?
I teach at Portland Community College.
Okay.
And you know, students sometimes experience stress, especially in language classes. I'm a language instructor, and so sometimes I have kind of run a scenario of, wow, somebody might get so wigged out about the imperfect subjunctive that, you know, they're just driven over the cliff. And that was the beginning for me. That was the beginning of...
And hasn't that happened to us all?
Indeed.
Subjunctives, not again.
Yeah.
Anyway, so keep going. What happened? What else happened? Did you wake up in the night and go, okay, it's going to be a teacher with her heart cut out?
You know, it's the creative process is a curious thing. I can't really tell you exactly where the book came from, but this is what I hear writers saying often, and it is my experience that, you know, characters come and introduce themselves to you and they kind of tug on your sleeve and want you to tell their story, and if you just pay attention, then the story is kind of given to you. Yeah.
They'll show up.
They do.
And we don't know why.
We don't know why,
but
they're in there.
You know, one night when I was writing my first book, I wondered out loud one night, and I don't know why my great-grandparents chose to call my grandmother Lois, L-O-Y-E-S, which was her middle name, as opposed to Della, which was her first name. Right. And the next day, a woman named Della Heron showed up in my story.
There she was.
There she was. I couldn't send her away. But I couldn't figure out how one led to the other, but it did.
Right.
You know, maybe it was her tugging on my shirt sleeve. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, so you worked on this story for how long?
Oh, many years. I mean, I do have a day job, so you know, it was a labor of some years. Yeah. This is the second novel for me. My first novel was published in 2006.
And what was that?
That was called Day Shift Werewolf. So you see a theme. There are no werewolves in this novel, but there is definitely a tone that runs through my work of a kind of a tongue-in-cheek. I like to have fun with the supernatural, with monsters, with horror, but in a playful way.
Well, and you did a good job with this.
Thank you.
I mean, look at this woman. Look at her face. It's pretty intense, you know.
Isn't this a gorgeous cover? This
it's
is
great.
I'll just plug the artist. Her name is Anna Magruder. Yeah. She's a Portland-based artist, and I saw this piece in an art show and said, that's my character. There she is. The main character in the book is a Latin professor. This woman is obviously very bookish, and she's got, you know, the kind of nerdy glasses. I even have a line in the book about floral print blouses. And then, you know, this is like one of the suspects here, this faintly creepy-looking guy kind of eyeing her. Yeah. And she has a very pale complexion. The main character in the book is dead for most of the book, so...
So she looks pretty dead, but intensely dead.
Intensely dead. That's probably a good way to describe Linnea Nil, the Latin professor.
You kept me turning the pages wondering who done it, because clearly somebody done it. Yeah. But, you know, like, and that creepy woman, The dean. The dean, yeah, because when I was reading about her, I thought, she's pretty creepy. Would she have something to do with this?
Very good. I see you pick up on clues. That's good.
I know, but she was almost a little too creepy. because I thought, no, maybe she made her too creepy, so I was going to it's going to be somebody that's creepy but not creepy. Anyway, it was good. It was good how you did all that. So
thank you.
Why mysteries? I mean, what is it about mysteries to you as a writer?
Oh, I think actually I was drawn to the mystery format more as a satirist than as a mystery writer, and I don't know if I have another mystery in me.
That's a mystery too.
That's a mystery too. Yeah, I would say actually probably the mystery portion of this book is not its strength. I mean, it's perfectly adequate as a mystery story, but it was very important to me to write a story with characters who were well developed, that readers can relate to, that readers like, that readers root for, that have complicated emotional lives and problems that move the story forward. So there's a whodunit that's keeping you turning the pages, but there's also, well, what's going to happen emotionally with these characters? How are they going to resolve these relationship issues and these existential questions that they're wrestling with? And the mystery is a format that allowed me to do that and to have some fun, but it's also a human story.
Well, and the woman who was murdered clearly is in kind of a limbo,
right?
Purgatory of some sort. She can't move on until her heart is recovered.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're kind of rooting for her, and wherever she is in that middle layer of, between here and there, is kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Right. It's.
How'd you think of that?
Kind of addressing that whole question of what does happen to us when we die, and what are we doing in life that has an impact? Does anything that we do in life have an impact on that?
And does how we die matter?
Right. Does how we die matter?
So
the readers know this woman is murdered, and the killer cuts her heart out and leaves the heart in the sink in the women's restroom. And then she ends up in kind of a quest to recover her heart so that she can move on. The book explains.
Yeah.
It sounds a little odd, but
it's good to read it. You should buy it, even though we're telling you all about it right here. But,
no spoilers, Jody.
Yeah. Anyway, so talk to me about your life as a writer. You're in a writing group.
I am.
With Jill Kelly, who's been on our show before. And so what do you guys do? Talk about that.
It's a lovely thing. It's not a critique group, although I think critique groups are quite valuable and important for writers, but we are not exactly a critique group, but we meet every Friday. We gather at 10 in the morning, we each set an intention for the day, and then we write together in silence for the rest of the day. We regroup in the late afternoon, and sometimes people feel like sharing what they've produced that day, sometimes they don't. It's fine. We don't really give feedback, but we are a way to support one another in showing up to the work week in and week out, and it's very effective. I'm not sure that I could have completed this novel in this time frame without a structure like that. It's a synergy that happens.
Yeah, but were you, was the stuff that you worked on, did it go into the book? Was that what it was
absolutely.
About for you?
Okay. Yeah. I also write essays, and I do a little bit of poetry. I write a haiku every day and post it on a blog, and so I do write other things. But this was my main project of the last several years.
Wow. And so you teach at Portland Community College on which campus is that? Is
the Cascade campus on North Killingsworth.
Okay. I know where you are.
Yeah.
It's a good community college.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Facility, all of it, I think. Dallas, where I grew up, had one of the best community college districts around. Yeah. It was really good because they paid their teachers really well and kept them for a long time.
Community college teachers tend to care very deeply about their students and about student success. And I should say, since I'm on the air, on the record, there's much to satirize on any campus in the life of any college, but I don't have any particular desire to skewer my own employer. The issues that I kind of make fun of are issues that affect colleges and universities across the country. Primarily the cost of college, which is a big issue, a big problem for a whole generation of students now. The college is becoming, out of the reach of middle-class students. It's become terribly expensive for a couple of reasons. One is this kind of burgeoning administrative class, and the other is the dwindling public support, the dwindling state support for public education. So that difficulty forms part of the backdrop of the story. It's not a diatribe. I think you can attest to that. It's really a story with characters and a plot. But
but the one interesting character who's like a stripper, and that's how she's putting herself through school.
Exactly.
Because she doesn't want to live her life as a stripper, but that's it's
that's how
good money.
she can afford to go.
And so she's figuring out how many nights she'd have to work this week to come up with the extra tuition money or extra money for books, or and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a reality for many students now. So I present it playfully and satirically in the book, and she lives with a house full of young people who are all in one way or another selling or renting out their bodies. One of her housemates is carrying a surrogate child, and one of her housemates does medical research, is a volunteer experiments. So it's playful, but it's looking at a situation that's real.
Well, if you were queen, how would you fix it?
Oh, I'm a novelist and not a politician or a political activist, because this is where my skills lie, kind of in winking at the audience. I don't know that I can tell you realistically the answers, but I am concerned that our society as a whole does not value education as much as it should. Our governments are not providing the kind of financial support that's necessary to support high quality colleges and to help students. There's a wonderful initiative actually that I think was created by students that's before the Oregon House right now, I think. It's called Pay It Forward, in which students will essentially get grants that will pay for their college education, and then when they graduate, they'll pay back the money based on their income, which I think is brilliant. Why does it cost an English major as much to go to school as it costs an engineering major, when the engineer is going to go on to make six figures and the English major is going to be working at Starbucks? So I think that's brilliant, and I think we need to be innovative and be looking at solutions like that.
So what are you working on now?
Well, I'm working on promoting the book. There's a lot involved in publicity, and now writers have to be their own agents and their own publicists.
And here you are on our show.
Here I am, and it's fun. I enjoy it. I'm enjoying this process, but I haven't started a new project because I can't spread myself that thin. But in January, I intend to tackle the next novel. So, and I teach Spanish, that's my field. This book is about a Latin instructor and a French and Italian instructor, and I have, just great love for the Romance languages. It's kind of a love song to the Romance languages. But there's almost no Spanish in this book, and I think Spanish needs a novel of its own. So that's my next project, is to write a novel that's set in Latin America and has, kind of Spanish will get to be one of the characters, one of the stars.
Do you write every day?
I don't. Some writers do, and that's a wonderful practice. I believe in it, but it's not something that I can work into my personal life. So weekly, maybe a couple times a week.
It's hard to know when you're going to sit down and write. First of all, how long you're going to be there, for one thing, and if you're going to feel exactly that same way the next day to get up and do it again. I don't know how people do it who are so regimented in it. I'm not. I just write when the urge hits me.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for developing a practice in which you write whether the urge hits you or not. Sort of like if you're a runner, you go out whether you feel like it that day or not. But, I'm not producing as many novels as I might be capable of because I'm not particularly fast. But I enjoy the process, and I think my readers enjoy my work. So.
Well, that's good. 'Cause it's like people like Danielle Steele. I mean, she cranks those out every 9 months, but my gestation period is longer.
There you go.
It's like 10 years.
That's a really nice way to put it.
Okay, I may write another one in another 5 or 6 years, who knows? Anyway, hey, if you're just tuning in, I'm Jody C., and this is Back Page, and we're visiting with Jan Underwood. about her latest novel, which is called Utterly Heartless. And where can people get this book if they are so inclined to pick it up somewhere?
You can Google Create Space Utterly Heartless. You can look on Amazon, and it's also available for Kindle.
Okay.
If you want to support your indie bookstore, you can certainly ask them to order it, but they'll have to place an order and you'll have to wait for it to be shipped. So.
What's your favorite bookstore?
Oh, well, you know, I could just take a sleeping bag to Powell's with me and just live there. It's almost physically painful to go into Powell's. You know, there's just so much I want to read. But Annie Bloom's in Multnomah Village is a lovely bookstore, and I make a practice when I travel of seeking out the used bookstores and the independent bookstores, and you know, supporting the local economy in my tiny way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm partial to independent booksellers, and my two favorites in Portland are Broadway Books and Wallace Books. Have you ever been to Julie Wallace's store?
Yeah, that's a great place.
It's a funky little place.
Where the books are stacked 2 and 3 deep in the shelves.
It's great.
That's really fun.
Yeah. I'm always a little nervous in the wintertime when they have the fire in the fireplace going, but, you know, it's an old house and it's cold.
Yeah.
But I was walking and go, ooh, some books are up to here. Anyway, I hope I don't get Julie shut down, but nonetheless, it's one of my favorite bookstores. I love that place.
It's like a treasure hunt when you go in there.
It is, and it's a great place. So, when did you start your writing? How long ago did that start for you?
I think as soon as I could hold a pencil, Jody.
Really?
Yeah,
You've been writing stories all your life.
I can remember being in first grade and just, you know, the whole idea of story creation kind of coming online for me. And of course, my parents read to me a lot, and my first stories, I think, were about Winnie the Pooh. And I remember my father saying, in his gentle way, you know, kind of suggesting that I come up with my own characters, which hadn't occurred to me. And so that, you know, I mean, I had encouragement from very early on to write fiction.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Were they teachers or writers? Either one of them?
Both.
Both teachers.
Both teachers and both writers. And
there you go.
And my mother's a painter, so.
Wow.
So lots of good creative juice in this family.
So were you an only child?
I am an only child.
Wow, so they focused all this creative energy.
Yeah. Aren't I lucky?
On their one little darling.
I loved being an only. I didn't have to share anything. I got all the attention.
They said, get out there and do it.
Yep. Yeah.
And you did.
I did.
And good for you. So, do you teach you teach a writing class at PCC?
No, I teach Spanish. I mean, of course, learning to write is part of that process, but of course at a community college we just offer the first 2 years, the lower division courses of a college degree. So when you're doing that in a second language, some of my students actually can do some creative writing in Spanish, but mostly it's, you know, just working on more basic vocabulary and grammar.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
Así es.
Yeah, I took Spanish. So there was one. I knew ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? And Lo siento, ojalá que se mejore pronto.
Oh, very nice.
Which means I hope you get better and soon. And what you had just said was Tango Catarro, which means I have a cold.
Right.
That's
yeah,
all I can remember.
Go.
I was like 13 years old, so it's been a long time. So talk to me about how you decided. I know you're a teacher, a college teacher, but how did it come to you to have this all take place on a college campus? And what were you seeing in your brain when you thought it up?
I have some passages early on that describe the campus as being completely engulfed in English ivy, which of course on the West Coast is an invasive species. And I had a vision, you know, I read.
That's why
volunteer.
I thought it was,
it's one of those places that has the kind of classic college campus architecture, but English ivy is a problem on the Reed campus, and twice a year they have.
So is marijuana. But,
well,
anyway.
Nobody's growing it in Reed Canyon to my knowledge, but certain invasive plants have kind of took over the landscape, and now they're trying to reclaim it. So a couple of times a year, there are opportunities to go to Reed as a volunteer and pull ivy, and I think that's probably where that notion for my fictitious campus came from. This idea of, you know, if you let it go, eventually the buildings would be invisible under you know, ivy monsters. So
Yeah. So the woman in this story, Utterly Heartless, who has the boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Does she keep the boyfriend?
Well, I can't reveal that. That would be
Okay.
telling too much about how the story ends.
Okay.
But yeah, there is a romance.
Mm-hmm.
There's some romantic tension. It's also a story about friendship, because the murdered woman and her best friend are the two main characters who kind of are trying to work it out with the missing heart. There are two romances actually in the book, because the younger woman, the college student, has a boyfriend too.
Right.
Yeah. So there's all that drama.
Yeah, except he has another romance.
Yeah,
sorta.
yeah. So there's a story about romance as it plays out when you're 20, and romance as it plays out when you're 40.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of the.
So how did you come up with the idea of having this woman's heart cut out of her?
Well, it's a bad pun. I mean, that's really the origin of it. You know, that she's heartless. Mm-hmm. I think, there are writers who have an outline. There are people who make an outline when they write fiction, and they work in a very linear way.
Yeah.
They start at the beginning of their story and they work all the way to the end. Oftentimes they'll tell their story in chronological order, and they won't stop writing until they finish the story, and then they'll go back and they'll revise from beginning to end again. And I am absolutely not that kind of writer. I am not linear. I start with vignettes. I start with imagery, turns of phrase, bits of dialogue, interesting words, notions about a character. What if you had a character with this hang up and this happened? What would that look like? How would the character respond? What would happen to that person? That's how I get started with my ideas. And then they just, it's like some kind of tinker toys, just adding pieces where they seem to fit. And it's quite a job, actually. Maybe a jigsaw puzzle would be a better metaphor, because sometimes I have disparate pieces that don't seem to fit together, but they're about the same people or the same places or basic situations, and I have to figure out how to put that puzzle all together. So that's part of the revision process for me, is putting the pieces together. That's how I write. So I can't really tell you, I had this idea and then a whole story kind of flowed out of that.
When I see someone's writing space and they've got like a whole wall that's made out of cork board, and they've got little index cards with ideas penned in such order, and there's something inside me that goes, ooh, I'd like to be able to write like that, but I don't ever write like that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just means I'm not going to write like that.
We all have different brains and different learning styles and different thinking styles, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's what works for you in your writing and helps you produce the best work you're capable of.
Yeah.
So,
how many rewrites did you do?
Oh, I have been asked that question before, but I don't count.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's a good idea not to count after a while.
Yeah, beginning writers are advised against revising as they write, because you can get stuck in the revision and never finish the writing. But I think once you get to a place where you have what it takes to finish the book, you're going to finish the book, you can be a little looser with that. And so I do tend to do some revising as I'm still producing. So in that sense, it's impossible to count drafts. I can't tell you I wrote 10 drafts or 20 drafts. It's all a draft until the thing is printed.
Well, that's true too. I remember going to a Willamette Writers Group meeting, and there was a member of the group who had just gotten his first book published, and they said, and he did everything right. He did this and this and this and this, and he rewrote it 5 times. And I remember thinking in my head, I wouldn't rewrite something 5 times, but I did. I mean, I rewrote it way more than 5 times. I lost count of how many times I rewrote it.
5 doesn't seem adequate to me, to tell you the truth.
It's way more than that.
Yeah.
So
it's revising is key.
Well, I remember my first book was about to be published, but suddenly the publisher didn't like one part of it, and I mean, we had to do it like right now, okay? And I was sitting at this little kitchen bar in my partner's house, and all of her teenagers were there and all their friends, and that's when I learned that I can write and I can just create this shield like Gardol, where nothing would penetrate that, and because I had to do it.
I think there's a great tradition of women writers who discover that about themselves, because until quite recently in history, women haven't had the freedom to have their own offices and disappear.
Yeah, you right at the dining room table.
Yeah, with all the chaos around you.
Yeah,
and all your responsibilities. Yeah, so good for you.
Yeah. Do you have children?
I do. I have a son who's at Reed.
Of course he is.
Of course he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's he majoring in?
Chemistry.
Wow, at Reed College.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that.
No, Reed is very strong in the sciences and the liberal arts.
Yeah, I just wouldn't have thought of. I just wouldn't have thought of it.
It's a place for Renaissance people.
Yeah. So, talk to me about. You started writing this as a child because your parents both were writers and teachers, and they said, "You must do this, darling," and you said, "Okay, Daddy," and you began to write. At what point did you know you were good enough to write a book?
I wrote my first novel. Well, I mean, I actually produced some novel-length works in childhood, but I'm not sure that those count. They count as practice, but I'm not sure anyone would read them, which is fine. I actually wrote my first proper novel in my early 30s, and it's never been published. It was kind of my practice novel. It's probably publishable, but at a certain point, I lost interest in it. It was time to move on to the next project. I couldn't get it published. And at that point in my career, I didn't know that I could be funny. So it's a very straight, contemporary, realistic piece of literary fiction with, I mean, it has some moments of comic relief, but it's not a funny novel. It's a serious novel about a woman struggling with cancer and raising children as a single mother while she's dealing with cancer. So that was one kind of a project, and I felt good about the work, but it didn't get published, and so I kind of just set it aside. And then in 2005, on a lark, I participated in the 3-day international novel writing contest based in Vancouver, BC, and I won. So that was my first published novel.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, so that was the werewolf book, Day Shift Werewolf. And that was the first time I realized I could be funny in print, that it was a playful, silly, kind of satirical, fun book about monsters with existential hang-ups. Yeah. A werewolf who's so bad at his job that they put him on the day shift, and then, there's no visible moon, and so that was a new beginning for me then, to realize that, there's this other thing that I can do that people like. People like funny. So this project is in the same vein, and I think I'll continue along that.
Well, good. Well, so we're going to have to wrap it up. They're giving me the high sign, but thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Jody.
We've been talking with Jan Underwood about her book, Utterly Heartless. I'm Jody C. This is Backpage. Be sure to join us again next time as we take another peek at the back page. And remember, we're all in this together. More the same than different. Do your best.